Thank you all for coming to our habit formation and power of compounding class. Thank you, Alex, for doing this. I know I've heard that you've done it for your teams, so
yes.
Really excited for this. And I attended your happiness training, which was phenomenal. So I'm really excited for this. I'm going to do a quick introduction before I pass it over to you. So Alex Chanson is an account manager at Google. He has also worked with people on the people analytics team. For the past 7 years, he has been studying happiness and human potential inside of various organizations, including Google. He runs the website Critical Chance and has lectured on positive psychology across the country. So thank you, Alex, for doing this.
Thank you very much. So by a quick show of hands, who here is a coffee drinker? Okay, good amount. And keep your hand up if you drink coffee every day. Pretty much everybody. Okay. Everyone who had their hand up still had their hand up, about half the room. And that actually matches statistics. So if you drink coffee, you're probably familiar with this. Every day, millions of Americans line up in droves around the country just for their favorite cup of joe. And not only can the lines be long, but the coffee can be upwards of $5 a cup, which begs the question, how much does your coffee actually cost? So if you drink coffee every day,
I didn't know we were going to start like this.
It gets better, I promise.
It's like Uber. Nobody wants to know.
If you drink coffee every day, right, and let's say it's $5 a cup, you're spending about $1,825 a year on coffee. And if you're using like a 15% marginal tax rate, you'd need to earn over $2,000 a year just to sustain this morning ritual. And so begs another question. What if you took this small cost and actually reverted it, turned it from a small cost into a small savings? Well, if you took that entire amount on January 1st every single year and invested into your retirement, this is how much money you'd have over the course of time. So 10 years goes by, you'd have $25,000. 20 years goes by, $80,000. And by the time you'd hit 40 years, you'd have almost $400,000. Pretty amazing. But it wouldn't be fair if we didn't include an employer match, right? So let's say employer matches $1, January 1st turns into $3,650. Over the course of a 40-year period, you'd have about $750,000 in your 401k. If a 22-year-old followed this sage advice, did it every single day, by the time they were retirement age, they'd actually have over $1 million saved for retirement. So in some sense, we're actually just asking Americans to save the equivalent of a Starbucks latte every day. But if you look at this as investment, you're actually missing the point. And the point is that small everyday habits compound and they can create extraordinary gains. In our society, we tend to overvalue defining moments, like these big, important goals or moments, benchmarks in your life, right? Like you get a great job, or you land a big sale, or perhaps, I don't know, you get like 1,000 followers on Twitter. Like this is, right, this is your total potential moving up. But the truth is that most of your total potential is actually dictated by the small habits that you do every single day. And said another way, right, your small habits are actually forward-looking predictors of your success. What you're doing and replicating every single day is actually what's helping propel you forward, whereas the defining moments are these big moments in your life where they're reflecting that you're on the right path. And James Clear of jamesclear.com says this: "It's so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making better decisions on a daily basis. Almost every habit that you have, good or bad, is the result of many small decisions over time." And what we're actually unlocking now is success is played at the margins. Here's what I mean. If you were to only get 1% better every single day, by the end of the year, you'd actually be 400 times better than you were at the beginning. And conversely, if you were just to get 1% worse, right? What's the difference between just getting a little bit worse every day or a little bit better? By the end of the year, it's an 1,000% difference. So success, again, is just a few small disciplines practiced every day, whereas failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. So which one are you doing? Are you getting 1% better, or are you getting 1% worse? And that's our topic for today. And the whole concept here, right, 1% better is, are you building good habits that you're replicating, or perhaps you have a few bad habits that you're just keep mulling through. And what we're going to talk about is actually the science behind habit formation. And by the time we end this conversation, you'll have one habit or a few habits that you can replicate moving forward. This is Habit Formation and the Power of Compounding, and my name is Alex Jansen. Part 1, the art and science of habit formation. Cool. So if you're like me, you might have just gotten hungry, although you guys are already eating, so I'll take, you're probably not. You didn't eat the cookie. Awesome. So actually, the study that we're gonna start with today has to do with just that. It has to do with eating cookies. So this one study actually tells a lot about human behavior and building habits. So the way the study was run, a group of people were split into two different groups. The first group was brought into a room, sat down, they were given instructions about how the study would go, and then another person came in and put a big plate of freshly baked cookies right in front of them. Then they started to walk away, and right before the researchers left the room, they said, oh, one more thing, I forgot to tell you. Those cookies, they're actually not for you. So if you don't mind, they're for the next person, just don't eat them. Cool, we'll be right back. So they leave the room, they wait a period of time, they come back, and then they give them puzzles to solve. And turns out these puzzles are pretty much impossible to solve. And what the real objective was to see is how long these people would persist at trying to solve the puzzle. Okay? So that's group 1. Group 2, same exact kind of thing happens. Person's walked to a room, they sit down, read the instructions, but instead of cookies being placed in front of them, they put a plate of freshly baked beets. Same exact things happen. Person's about to walk out of the room, they say, oh yeah, before I leave, just want you to know those beets actually aren't for you, so just make sure you don't eat those. We'll be right back. Wait a period of time. Come back in, same puzzle, same test, measure the time. By quick show of hands, who thinks that the cookie group lasted longer? Okay, and who thinks that the beets group lasted longer? Okay, about half and half. The answer is the beets group. Does anyone have an idea why?
That's frustrating to not be able to eat beets, but it's more frustrating to not be able to eat cookies.
Exactly. So,
for most people.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. So at the end of the day, humans have a limited amount of willpower, right? And a lot of times we think forming a new habit, achieving a certain goal, like if we were only more motivated, if we only had a little bit more willpower. But if you rely on willpower alone, you won't actually be able to do it. And that is the main thing to learn. And so we're going to go through 3 specific scientific studies and facts on how to build habits not using willpower in mind. Okay, the 20-second rule. So maybe this picture reigns true for you. For me, it's 3 and 4 minutes. For you, it might be 10 or 15 minutes. Good for you. But at a certain point in time, if you put cookies in front of me, leave them right in front, tell me not to eat them, there's going to be a moment where I'm just going to eat them, right? Because they're literally right in front of me. And what the 20-second rule posits is just by creating 20-second difference, meaning make it 20% or 20 seconds harder to perform a task, you're actually significantly less likely to do it. So in the cookies example, if you don't want to eat cookies, first of all, don't have them in your house. But if you can't do that, don't put them in front of you, right? So this is a very basic example. You would take it, put it in a cabinet that's far away where you'd have to get a step stool in order to actually walk up. Maybe you put it in a box or there's a combination on the box. Now all of a sudden it seems like it's not that big of a difference, but you're actually not going to take the initiative to go and eat the cookies. And if you look actually at studies at Google, it's why the micro kitchens are fogged out for all the unhealthy stuff, or they're put in different cabinets. Like that in itself, you're significantly less likely to take that initiative to eat the things you don't really want to eat. And the cool part about this, so that's an example of maybe a bad habit, but this actually works for positive habits too. So the best example I've heard is, you want to start working out in the gym. Okay, so you're like, I'm going to wake up early. Right when I wake up, I'm going to go to the gym. Well, if you go to sleep in your gym clothes, seems like a very subtle difference, but now literally all you have to do is walk out of the door and you are ready to go. And a lot of studies are showing things like that, those small little tactics, although it seems like it'll only take a minute, you're already making the decision for yourself before you actually have to make the decision, right? So while you have this willpower in mind, you should reprogram your environment or change your setup so that you actually follow through with the habit later. Cool. Number 2 is habit bundling. So research also shows us that we don't actually break habits. We just replace them, which is a little sad, but it's the truth. And this framework that's on the left is the 3 R's of habit formation. And this is by Charles Duhigg and a few other researchers. But every single habit has these 3 pieces to it. So there's a reminder, right? So maybe it's a visual, maybe it's a sound, time of day. Then the routine is the actual habit you're practicing. And then there's some sort of reward, right? Either it's how you feel, or maybe you do get some sort of reward afterwards. And this is the cycle. Now, what's really interesting is you may not realize it, but you have a lot of habits you already do every single day. And so what we're finding is instead of starting a new habit, you actually just need to start the positive habit with an existing one in mind. And so what we're going to do real quick, we're going to take a few minutes to do, is I want you to write down all the things that you do every single day without fail. So this could be you wake up in the morning, you go and you make coffee, you walk your dog, you drive to work. What are the things that you know with a huge certainty you will do tomorrow? We'll take one more minute. So you probably have a good amount of things in front of you now. These are your pre-programmed habits that you already do every day. And so the concept here is, let's say I want to write 3 things I'm grateful for every day. I know every single morning I make coffee. That takes 5 minutes. It would be better for me to probably just do that with the coffee in mind, right? So whenever I go to make coffee, I'll have a notebook next to the coffee machine and I'll start making my coffee. I'll write the things I'm grateful for. Then all of a sudden, I already have the reminder, I have a routine, and I have a reward all pre-programmed in that I know I'm going to do every single day, which is significantly easier than doing it on my own. The next piece we're going to do, so that's your first list. The second list you're going to make is I'd like you to write down all the things that happen to you every single day. So for example, I know I'm driving to work, I'm going to hit a red light. That happens to me every day. My boss will email me inevitably at least once a day, right? Take a moment to just think of the things that happen to you every day without fail. Cool, and one more minute for this one. All right, and stop. So now you should have 2 lists in front of you, things that you know you'll do every single day, like the coffee example for me, and then things that happen to you every day, like the red light example. So you can actually choose to tie your habits to either one of these because they're all reoccurring things. They're all reminders, routines, rewards. And you could even, if you'd like, try to use both. So you'd say, okay, I'm going to use the coffee for my new habit. And then every time I hit a red light, I'm going to think about, am I actually doing this? So I'll just continually be reminded throughout the day, am I forming the habit I wanted to form? Cool. The last tactic has to do with planning it. So this particular study has also been replicated in hundreds of ways, but the example I'll give you has to do with exercising. So researchers brought together individuals and they wanted to measure how often they would work out over a 2-week period. So they bring in the first group. The first group's a control group. They read the study, and then before they leave, they're actually given a book, a fiction book, unrelated, to just read a few pages of, then they leave. Okay. The second group is the motivational group. So same thing, they come in, but instead of getting a fiction book, they get a book on health and why it's great to exercise. Before they leave, they're told, when you exercise, you decrease your risk for cardiovascular health. Good luck. So then they leave, right? So they should be motivated, they should work out. Third group comes in, it's just like the motivational group. They're told about the studies, or they're told about working out. They're encouraged at the end to about cardiovascular health, that same fact, with one difference being they ask them to write down when they plan on working out in the next week, specifically which day they choose to do it, where they're going to do it, what time. And just by writing this down, 91% of them ended up working out at least one time a week, compared to about 20 to 30% of the other individuals. Every single time this study is replicated, whatever it is, they say it's about a 3 to 4 times bump of you fulfilling what you'd want to fulfill if you write down when you're going to do it. And being more specific helps. Great. So those were the 3 main items that we were going to go over today. In the next section, we're going to choose our habits that we'd like to form. So we're going to take a few minutes here, and what I'd like you to do is brainstorm all the positive habits that you'd love to start doing. This could be super extensive, it could be short, whatever are the ones that you have on your mind you'd like to try, go ahead and start writing those down. We'll take about 1 more minute. All right, pencils down. Whoop. Cool. So now I'm going to make you put them in order. So if you had to rank them, let's say your top 10. Take a moment, just put a number next to them, but rank in your priority list your top 10 habits. Out of all of them, yep. You can only choose 10 and then order them in chronological order. Like, what's your top priority to number 10 priority?
All 3 things that we mentioned, right? Not just the last.
Correct, yeah. All the habits you want to form, rank them. All right. Great. So if you haven't guessed this by now, you're only allowed to pick one. So cross everything else off and choose which one it is. It's probably number one, but it could be any of them. You're only allowed to commit to one habit. Which one would it be? Okay, cool. So does anyone have an idea why I'm making you only choose one? Yeah. Yep. Yep, more digestible. Anyone else? Yes, that's exactly it. So it turns out a lot of times when we try to form habits, we always make the big mistake of doing too many things at once, right? It's not just, I want to start working out on January 1st. It's, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to be nice to people. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat right. You know, this is my year. And that's great. That's great. You can do all those things, but you can only do one thing at a time. And so that's why we're only going to do one. Another reason for this too, this isn't like a new mental model, but someone I love to follow, like Warren Buffett, loves to talk about doing this type of thing. So he says, write down your 5 most ambitious goals for this year, rank them in order, and then he says, cross off numbers 3 through 5. Those are your never do for any reason, because they're only going to distract you from actually getting number 1 and 2 done. And that's the way you should think about your habits. Until you actually form it, you should only focus on one at a time. And a lot of people kind of say 21 days, right? That's how long it takes. The truth is that's actually the earliest amount of time. Like the least amount of time is 21, but it can be about 2 months total to actually fully get a habit in motion. So we're only going to choose one, and we're going to try to commit to it. So now that we've gotten our habit chosen, now that we've chosen our habits, let's go ahead and reiterate back to the 3 tactics we discussed today. So how are you going to make it 20 seconds easier for yourself? Which habit are you going to bundle it with? So you have those 2 lists from our first exercise. And then what I'd like you to do is write down when you plan on doing this habit. So make it actionable. Say which day, time of day, place. The more specific you can be, the better off you'll be. Just a few more minutes. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, awesome. Great. So now you have your one habit chosen, and you have specific tactics that are backed by science that can help you form that habit. So we first make our habits, and then our habits make us. At the end of the day, we're just a compilation of all of our habits, right? And so by changing our habits, we can really affect change within ourselves. And I like to end on a quick story. So that I was told. Once upon a time, there was a construction worker, and every day a construction worker came to work, and during lunch, he'd have break with all of his coworkers. He'd open up his lunch, he'd look into it, and he'd say, "Tuna fish again?" Next day, he'd come in, same exact thing would happen. He'd go to lunch, he'd be around the same people, he'd open up his brown bag, he'd go, "Tuna fish again?" Shrugs, eats the sandwich. And he does this for a number of days, for a number of weeks, until eventually one of the coworkers finally gets the nerve to say, he goes, "Hey, Jim, if you don't like tuna fish sandwiches, why don't you just tell your wife to stop packing you tuna fish sandwiches?" And he goes, "My wife? I pack my own lunches." And the point of the story is, right, a lot of times we complain about the sandwich that we're eating, and we fail to realize that we're the ones who are actually packing our own sandwiches. And I believe if we can just make a small tweak, we can form some positive habits, get 1% better every single day, elevate ourselves, everyone around us, we can create a real revolution. Thank you very much.